the 3 phases of a narcissistic relationship, okay? Because what Rebecca has done is Rebecca dug into the cycle of a narcissistic relationship. And I have to tell you, before we unpack this, everybody, I used to work on a domestic violence hotline. I did this decades ago. I was a trained crisis intervention counselor. And I will tell you that when you learn the 3 phases, this cycle of a narcissistic relationship and how supply really plays into it, it feels almost identical to battered women syndrome and the romance and the honeymoon cycle and the abuse cycle. And what's interesting is because so many of you have experienced emotional abuse from somebody who's narcissistic, I think it can be really confusing to identify it because it's kind of sinister. I mean, when somebody hits you, you know it's wrong. But when somebody is, I didn't say that, I never mean that, raging at you, putting you on edge, making you feel like you're the one going crazy, it's all emotional. And so you start to question yourself. And so Rebecca's going to teach you that there are 3 phases of a narcissistic relationship, and they are very distinct. And the first phase is when you get pulled in. And that phase is something you've probably seen other people have happen to them. I've certainly seen it happen to one of our kids. You get swept right off your feet. And you know that this is something called love bombing. And that's what we're going to talk about when we come back. We're going to dig into all 3 phases, what they look like, what they feel like, how to spot which phase you might be in or a friend might be in. And then we are going to get to that 4-step approach to how you deal with a narcissist, how you negotiate, and how you ultimately win and get what you need from the narcissist in your life. So don't you dare go anywhere, because I'm going to be waiting for you after the break. Welcome back. It's your friend Mel Robbins. We are digging into narcissism, and boy, are we learning a lot from Rebecca Zung. As you know, Rebecca Zung is one of the top-ranked lawyers in the United States. She has been researching narcissism for decades. She's written 3 books on the subject, and I love her angle because she's not a psychologist. She's not a relationship expert. She's a lawyer who is here to make her case. She is a lawyer who shows up in a court with a strategic mind and a game plan to win. And so let's dig in to the 3 phases, the cycle of a narcissistic relationship. And Rebecca, you write extensively about phase 1, which is love bombing. Can you describe what love bombing is?
Yeah, so it's the same whether it's a professional or a personal relationship. And, obviously if you're in a family, it's totally different. But this is initial if you're just meeting a person. So this is, they use mirror neurons, by the way. I mean, this is one thing I do say they're really, really good at because it's a survival mechanism for them, so it's something that they've learned from childhood to do. And that is they kind of become exactly what you want. They're very good at reading people. So they become, they're almost like chameleons to read exactly what you want. And they come on really, really strongly at the beginning to, I mean, it's almost like you can't breathe. They overpower you. And all of a sudden it's, you're the most amazing thing. They make you feel like you're the most incredible person that they've ever met, and they are the most incredible person that you've ever met, and it's like your soulmates. And where have you been all my life? And it's 50 emails a day and 1,000 text messages a day, and they're showing up at your house or office, and we should get married, and we should meet your family. Or if it's a business relationship, then we should be business partners. And I've got all the best contacts, and it's the excitement, and it's the chemistry, and you almost can't breathe or see anything else because it's all them all the time, because they're trying to get you to that next level right away. They want to lock you in as fast as possible. Let's get married in Vegas. Let's move in together. Get me on your bank accounts. And, you know, many times they'll show up as your savior. You know, if it might be right after somebody died and they're swooping in and they're taking care of everything, or it might be if you are a victim of something, then they'll show up and they'll take care of everything that way. Or, you know, they look for opportunities to kind of swoop in, if they look for vulnerabilities that way as well. But you know, it's sweep you off your feet, grand gestures, massive huge grand gestures like that a lot of times. So like that's the kind of thing you see at the beginning, big
Got it.
things, lock
Got it.
you in.
One of the things I just want to point out is that even though you're using terms like they look for this, they do this, would you agree, though, that this is, given that it's arrested development, not something that a narcissist is consciously doing? That they're not sitting around going, who's my next victim? Who am I going to love bomb? This is their way of being. And they do it innately. And so, like, I think part of the reason why it's important to highlight that to everybody is to make sure that you understand that that's why there is such a sense of denial. I never did this. I didn't do that. I didn't say that, because they're not even aware that this is what they're doing. They just think that you're in love. They just think that we should get married. They just think that we are, you know, soulmates. I watched this happen with somebody that I love just in the past year. And it was so alarming, because as this person came on like the absolute love of this person's life and took over their universe, I'm thinking, this is love bombing. Oh my God. But from both the person with narcissism and the person that they were love bombing, this felt like the world's best, most magical love story. And nobody could argue otherwise.
Yeah, I absolutely do think that. And I mean, I think they believe everything that they say. I do. And I always tell people, send them light, but over there, you have to protect yourself though too. You know, so yes, have
No, I
compassion
agree.
for them, but you know.
I agree. What I'm trying to say is, I think maybe too fine of a point, that when I see people talk about narcissism, particularly on social media, there is an assumption that there is a very specific and conscious and intentional strategy that somebody is deploying. And what I'm trying to say is, I don't believe that's true, because I think this is just how they operate, and they're not even aware that this is how they operate. It's unconscious, which makes it almost more dangerous, that they are stuck in this loop themselves as an 8-year-old emotionally, and they're not doing anything to you, so to speak. This is how they move through every single relationship. And they are not going to be attracted to somebody who is strong and in their power, because you're not buying into the love bombing and you're not part of this loop. And so I guess I say that only because I see a lot of misinformation and finger pointing in the language online. That's not what you're saying, but I think it's important for somebody listening to understand. If you listen closely to what Rebecca Zung is saying, she is saying, based on her research, this is something that happens neurologically during childhood. That's why there's so much denial on the part of the narcissist. They're not aware. So after the love bombing, though, and you now are in business with somebody, and you now have given somebody equity, or you have put them into your bank accounts, or you think you're running off and getting married, there's all of a sudden a second stage. What is that stage, Rebecca?
The devalue is, that's when you start to see kind of the wheels come off. That's when they start to like exhale, and that's where you start to see like the red flags, and you know, there's no more of the 50 emails a day. That's where you start to see the lying. As soon as you get to this part, they've locked you in, they've gotten here, which is what they've been looking for. This is where they kind of relax, because they've kind of been holding their breath, trying to get you. And now they've gotten you. And so now they sort of exhale, and you get to start to see that mask come down a little bit. And, now you start to see all the red flags. Their stories aren't holding up. Now you start to see lies. Now you start to see manipulation. Now, that money that they borrowed from you, well, they're not probably ever going to pay it back. But they're starting to lie about, and that degree that they said they had, well, it's not really a degree, it's really something else. And that brother-in-law that they said was actually a thing, well, that's not really a thing. That project that they said they were going to do for you, well, that's probably not going to get done. And all these things are starting to happen, and the 50 calls a day, well, now they don't call you at all, and now how come you're so needy? And it just becomes this whole relationship that you didn't think it was at all. And you're trying to chase and get that back again. But then when you start to walk away, well, then they make promises for the future. And it becomes this whole toxic stew, push, pull, push, pull, push, pull, which is also plays upon your brain, because now you're getting these dopamine hits, so you become physiologically addicted to this person, and that causes a trauma bond in you.
I would love to have you unpack this. Because as you're describing this, Rebecca, my heart is sinking, because I have watched someone that I love deeply go from a very strong, centered, powerful person to questioning themselves relentlessly and putting up with bullshit lies and kind of that, I never said that, and you're needy, and kind of that pushback, and questioning themselves, and I have not known what to do. And so can you explain what you mean when you use that term, addicted?
Yes. So there's a study by a professor from Stanford called, his name is Robert Sapolsky, and he did a study on monkeys, and the monkeys would get a reward every single time they did something good, and nothing happened in their brain. Then he would give these monkeys a reward intermittently, and they didn't know when they were going to get this reward. And when they didn't know, then the dopamine levels in their brain actually rose to the level of cocaine.
I'm so glad you are bringing this study up, Rebecca, in the context of narcissism, because I'm very familiar with the study. And just to kind of broaden this out for you listening, this is a really well-known study that's normally talked about in the context of addiction. It was done with monkeys, and here's what it proved. It proved that not getting the reward all the time is what got the monkeys addicted. I can give you another example that'll make sense. Envision a slot machine. When you go and you pull the lever or you push the button on the slot machine and you watch those things like twirl, right? As you are craving a win and you don't get it, what do? Boom, you hit it again. All of a sudden you get a win. Oh my God, amazing. So now what do? You hit it again, and then you hit it again, and then you hit it again, and you hit it again, and now you get a win again. But it's not consistent, is it? See, it's the inconsistency. It's the fact that it might be really good. That's what causes the addiction to it. And so this is really important to understand when in the context of narcissism, because the praise and the love bombing and the attention from the narcissist, it's totally unpredictable. Like 1 minute you're the center of the world and they love you and you're this and you're that and the other thing. And then boom, the wind changes and you're in the phase of discard. You're like literally, they don't even talk to you. And that's what makes you feel like a monkey addicted to cocaine who doesn't know when it's going to come next. And this is also why you can have a super smart, rational, accomplished girlfriend and watch her become a complete cocaine addicted monkey when she gets in a relationship with a narcissist. You see the love bombing. Then you see the inconsistent behavior. Then you try to appeal to her rationally, but then she's back into the love bombing. And it's just like gambling or any other addiction. Because it's so inconsistent, you literally get addicted to the person because you're waiting for that next round of the love bombing to come. This makes so much sense.
Right. The conclusion was that when you are dealing with a narcissistic type of a person, that the anticipation of this love bomb, you actually become physiologically addicted to this person, and that is partially what contributes to this trauma bond, is that your brain becomes physiologically addicted to that hit of wanting that back.
I have seen this dynamic play out with somebody I love deeply in a relationship. These first two phases of the relationship. The first one being the love bombing, everybody. And the second one now is this sort of devaluing that makes the person spin. But then there's this third phase of a narcissistic relationship, this cycle that you can get in. And you label this the discard phase.
Yeah, so the discard phase can be either you're discarding them or they're discarding you. I mean, this is where, it's the end of the relationship, and you will see the birth of the smear campaign for sure. But, this is where you will definitely become public enemy number one. And because you're either for them or against them. And so even with the covert narcissist, the mask will definitely come off and they will come after you because they want to make sure they take you down before you can take them down.
So, Rebecca, if you are in that discard phase where they've withdrawn, the lies are coming out, the truth is starting to get revealed, you say there's only 3 options when you realize you're in this phase. What are they?
Well, you can stay. You can give exactly what they want, or you can fight back and do it in a way that's strategically, which you have to do. You have to do. I was the people pleaser, though. I wanted to be liked. I didn't want to, I didn't want other people who were in our circle to think that I was the bad one. She was all likable, and I didn't want people to be mad at me. And, I had all this stuff that I needed to get past so that I could speak up and stand on my own 2 feet. And thank God I did.
Thank God you did, because now you're here to teach us how to do the same thing and how to try to support the people that we see stuck in this to do the same thing. For somebody listening who has been caught in this cycle and they don't even know what their value is because they're so spun around, where do you begin? How do you define it if you don't even know what it is because you're that
Those baby steps, little baby steps. Once you start little baby stepping it and you start to see little steps, that's why, little wins every single day start to stack up. And when you start to see, you know what, I did it. I started to create a boundary today and it worked. I started to do this a little bit today and it worked. That's where you start to stack up those wins and you start to turn it around, and you'll see it'll work. It starts working.
The 2 biggest things that changed for me in terms of me getting on the offensive was identifying the narcissism as a tantrum and visualizing the narcissist as an 8-year-old in a tantrum, which helped me separate myself. And the second thing was really taking a pause after visualizing the tantrum and asking myself, well, what do I want right now? And if I don't want to deal with this, it's a yes or a no or silence. And if I do want to deal with it, it's exactly what you're talking about. in terms of thinking about, okay, well, there's going to be a supply here. What am I willing to give to get what I want?
Right.
And doing that consciously and emotionally distant makes you feel so empowered because you're no longer in it. You're now the one manipulating it, and they don't even know. And it's
100%.
fantastic.
You are the one in control. And just remember, what's negotiable is contracts and issues and terms, not your self-worth, your self-esteem, or who you are.
Because there's so much denial when you're in it, and so much, I think, explaining away bad behavior, that I'm not sure people understand the strategies and the patterns that you can spot when you know them. So what are some of the most common patterns that narcissists use to keep your attention and that supply coming back to them?
Well, gaslighting is probably one of the biggest ones. I mean, I think all narcissists use gaslighting to destabilize you and make you think that you're crazy. So, it would look like, and there's so many different forms of gaslighting, but the bottom line of gaslighting is trying to make you think that you're crazy. So it comes from the movie or the play Gaslight, where the husband was blowing out gaslights to try to make the wife think that she was crazy. So she would say, "Wasn't that just lit?" And he would say, no, it wasn't. So that's what they do. So they'll say, "Oh, I'm going away with my friends for our anniversary weekend." And the wife would say, "Oh, you're going away on our anniversary weekend? We never discussed that." "Oh yeah, we had a whole conversation about that and you agreed, don't you remember?" "No, we never had that conversation." "Oh yeah, we did." And you never had that conversation. That's gaslighting.
You're giving my heart palpitations because I really felt like I was in the presence of this particular person that does this to me all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you think the biggest myth is about narcissism or negotiating with narcissists?
100%. It is that narcissists just want to win. Because they do want to win, but they also want to continue to manipulate you and see you squirm. And so the reason why people have trouble negotiating with narcissists and they can't ever get out of these things is because narcissists continue to move goalposts all the time because they enjoy the coal level supply too. And so they've missed the mark. They forgot about the coal level supply. And so unless you figure out a way to threaten a source of supply that's more important for them to keep than the supply that they get from jerking you around, which is the coal level supply, then you're never going to be done, ever.
And I bet you saw over and over again, being an attorney for 20 years, representing people, particularly in high net worth divorces, that divorces go on for years and years and years with narcissists because they, by keeping the divorce and the arguing and all that crap alive, they're getting that supply that you're talking about.
And I didn't know what was going on as a lawyer. I had no idea. I had a guy, the divorce lasted 5 years. He told me, "I'd rather pay you than her."
Yes, I think a lot of people say that.
And I remember saying to him, "You don't need to put my kid through college," because I was like sick of him myself. I mean, like how do I get rid of you? But I didn't realize that that's what he was doing.
And what you're basically saying is that conflict and the ability to bitch to your lawyer about the, quote, crazy person on the other side, it actually creates that coal level supply in you, the narcissist, because you feel better than the crazy person. Am I getting this?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you a crazy story. I'm going to tell you about a $2 million apology.
Okay. I'd like one of those.
So I had a case where we were mediating, and we thought we were just about done. The guy was going to pay the wife. I mean, she was getting a lot of assets too, but over the course of the next several years, he was going to be paying her $2 million in alimony monthly, but it was going to add up to about $2 million. And he was big flaming narcissist. And anyway, mediator comes in. It's like 9 o'clock at night. We've been mediating for like 12 hours. And he says to me, hey, Rebecca, can I talk to you for a second? We go out into the reception area, and he's like, I've never seen this before, but the wife, crazy enough, she's willing to waive alimony completely if he'll go in there, just the two of them, and apologize to her for all of the things and the way he treated her during the marriage. Sincerely. I'm like, and what's the catch? And he said, no catch. She just wants an apology. I'm like, all right. She's willing to waive it. We'll put it in the agreement. And her lawyer's standing there, and she's like, yeah, I told her no, but this is what she wants. Like, this really means a lot to her. I mean, I'm like, all right. So I go into the room, and I told him what was going on. And he says, no, I'm not going to do it. I said, what? Because you know why? Because he wanted the chance to be able to continue to screw with her every single month, not pay her, keep her on a string, do the whole thing, right? She wanted to be done with this dude, right? And I'm like, I'm going to kick your butt. You're going over there right now. And I'm thinking to myself, I need a CYA letter. Like, he's going to come back over here and tell me, why didn't you make me do this? So I said, you're going over there. You're doing this. So he went over there finally and did it like this, with like a puppy dog with his tail between his legs. And he did it, and we got the alimony waived. It actually happened. But he did not want to.
You wrote in your book, staying in a relationship with a narcissist.
If you're in a relationship with a narcissist, the way you got into that relationship with that narcissist, the way it all began, this whole thing all began with love bombing, because that's where narcissists start. They start off with love bombing. So remember that narcissists are the most shallow people you could possibly ever meet. They have no inner sense of value. All of their value has to be derived from the external. And how they do that is through what we call narcissistic supply. That's their lifeblood, that's their food, that's their oxygen. It's narcissistic supply. So supply can be in the form of money, prestige, compliments, but it also comes in the form of control, coercive control, psychological abuse, victimization, and just going after people in a way that they get them under their layer of control. Because by asserting control over people and exerting that control over people, they feel better about themselves. They feel like they are controlling the world around them and getting everybody to see that they're so amazing and so wonderful. Because if they see that side of them, then they'll never see what's really going on underneath, which is that they are the most scared little people, the most fragile egos on the planet. That's actually the secret. The secret is that you're stronger than they are by a lot. And they don't want you to know that, though. So, but how it all begins, how the whole fairy tale begins, is through what we call love bombing. And then they graduate into starting with the discarding and the devaluing. Well, just devaluing, then discarding. But really, these 3 stages of a narcissistic relationship happen all at once in a lot of ways. It's not linear. It's not like they go from love bombing, stop, discarding, stop, and then devaluing, stop, and then discarding, stop. It doesn't happen that way. It's actually much more mixed together that way. They can actually be discarding you and love bombing you at the same time, and sometimes that's called hoovering, but that's what they do. They use love bombing as a method, as a strategy to manipulate you. So remember that narcissists are master manipulators. You know that whole thing about 10,000 hours to become experts at something? Well, they've spent their entire lifetimes. They have way more than 10,000 hours in learning how to manipulate you. So the manipulation starts in the love bombing phase. So in the love bombing phase, this is where you're going to start to see that they're going to overwhelm the person, overwhelm them with how perfect they are. So in a business setting, this love bombing might take place in the form or manifests itself in the form of, being the perfect business partner, but this person can get you the deals that you want, introduce you to the clients that you want, has the skill set that you want, open the doors that you want to open. Everything about them just seems absolutely amazing, okay? In a romantic setting, they come on super strong. A really great example of this is the Dirty John series, and if any of you haven't seen that, you should check it out. It's a mini-series actually on Netflix. It's actually also a podcast, which was super popular, but the guy in that went after this woman who was a very successful woman in her 50s who had lots of success as a professional. She also had beautiful children that she had a wonderful relationship with and a close family. But the one thing that was missing in her life was this perfect romantic partner. So this guy comes along and sets himself up to be as absolutely perfect for her as possible. And so what did he do for her? He did everything a busy professional woman who's on her own would love to have. He was taking care of her dry cleaning and cooking her dinner and making her smoothies in the morning and taking her on trips and just becoming like the most perfect person ever. And so that's what they do. But what they do is they move super fast. So the relationship is on this fast track. Right away, within weeks, they're talking about marriage or moving in together or what the future is going to be forever. And they insist right away on meeting your children, if you have children from another relationship, or meeting your family, or meeting your friends. They want to be fully moved in and fully in control of you as fast as possible before you have a chance to figure out who this person really is. Because once they've got you under that layer of control, that's when they can start to take over and start to actually move into more of the devalue phase. What you'll see in this phase is like massive amounts of compliments and lavishing you with gifts and bombarding you with text messages and phone calls. And you'll start to see where they want to know everything about you. They want to know where you are at all times and how come you didn't call them back right away, and who are you talking to? Right away you start to see these little signs of things that aren't necessarily right. In the Dirty John movie, the man actually laid down on the woman's bed, in her bedroom after their first date and almost refused to leave, and she saw that as a red flag, but she kind of ended up ignoring it because of all these other things. I mean, they just overwhelm you with love bombing. As part of this, they want that commitment right away. They want to see right away that you're, not seeing anybody else, that you are giving them your undivided attention. Right away, early on, you're going to start to see where there's going to be some jealousy. that you're giving attention to other people. Well, if you really love me, if we were soulmates, that you would just give me all of your attention. And so you start to feel guilty if you're giving attention to somebody else, but you're really feeling like, well, but this person really needs me. They're extremely needy. And they may even present themselves to you as partially victimized, like they just need you so much because of this, you know, they had a terrible family, or maybe their ex-spouse treated them awfully, or maybe, you know, their kids were alienated from them. So they just really, really need you, and they need you now, and they need all of your attention right away. So these are the kinds of things that you see in the love bombing phase, and you do see these red flags start to crop up, where they start to, like, right away in your space, and right away jealous that you're doing other things, right away demanding to know everything that you're up to, right away wanting to start controlling aspects of your life, right away maybe actually even distancing you from your friends or your family or your loved ones, because, you know, you should be spending time with each other, and that person is just jealous of the time that we're spending together, and jealous that you finally found somebody that's perfect for you, jealous that you finally found a soulmate. So that's the kind of thing that you'll see, but they couch it in these terms that make it seem like it's okay that they're moving in so quickly because you're soulmates and you're meant to be together. We're going to talk today about that second stage, devaluing, and what it looks like, the many different types of devaluing, and what you can do about it. After they've love bombed you and got you all ensconced into their web of control, like a tarantula gets you into their web, then they start to suck the blood out of you. And they do that, they start that with the devaluing phase. So remember that narcissists have no inner sense of value. They have to suck all their value from the external, and they do that by attaching themselves to people that they can suck supply from. They are predators, and they're not going to attach themselves to you unless you've got something good that they can suck from, something that they want. So it might be your adulation, it might be that you can you know, bring them to places they want to be brought to, introduce them to people they want to be introduced to, make them look good in some way, bolster up their ego in some way, and they may want to bolster their ego by making you look bad or devaluing you. That's a lot of times how it looks. Remember, it's a method of control. So the first way that they devalue you is through a method called gaslighting. It's a very highly manipulative technique of psychological abuse where they try to make you think that you're crazy. The word actually came from a play, which was also then made into a movie. The play was from 1938, and what the husband in the movie would do to try to make his wife think that he was crazy, or she was crazy, is he would dim the gas lights, or he would actually blow them out. And she would say, "Wasn't that just lit?" And he would say, no, it wasn't. And so he was trying to make her think that she was crazy. And so that's where the word gaslighting comes from. So what gaslighting will look like is you'll say, "Oh, I didn't know that you were doing that." And the other person, the narcissist, will say, "Oh, yes, you did. We talked about that. Don't you remember? You agreed." And you start to actually question your own sanity, like, "Oh, did we talk about that? Oh, I don't think we did." But you know that you didn't. But you know, when they do that over and over again, this gaslighting technique, it actually starts to work on you psychologically, and your brain becomes scrambled. So that's number one, is gaslighting. Number two is emotional appeals. So they try to play on your emotions, like get you to feel sorry for them. "Oh, you're attacking me and I have so much work to do," or "I have so much stress and I can't deal with this right now," or "I don't like the way you said that." You know, you're questioning something about them, and they push it back on you, like, oh, you're really hurting me, or that was below the belt, or I didn't like the way you said that, or I didn't like the language that you used. So it deflects away from your own messaging. Another way that they will devalue you is through this burden of proof. Like, prove it. Prove that I'm wrong. Prove that I did that. Prove that I'm lying. If you can't prove it, then it's not true. Or it is true, or whatever. If you can't prove it, then whatever you're saying has no value, no merit whatsoever. Another way of devaluing is labeling you or calling you names, like saying that you're stupid or you're moronic. I mean, those are just outwardly devaluing you. Another way of devaluing is to ridicule you. You know, like make fun of you. Make fun of the way you talk. Make fun of the way you walk. Make fun of the way you cook. Make fun of the way you do anything. Just devaluing. And they might say, oh, you can't take a joke. Come on, take a joke. Or they'll say something that's really mean, and then they'll say, ha, at the end of it, like, oh, it was just meant to be funny. But you know that it was meant to hurt you. Another way of devaluing you is to ignore you or not pay attention to what you're saying. So you're telling them about something that really means a lot to you, and halfway through the sentence, they're just talking about something else, looking at something else, picking up your phone, or they might just kind of give you a quick little response and then, be on to what are we having for dinner. Just really just subtly letting you know that they really don't care about what it is that you were talking about. Another way of devaluing is what we call triangulation, or lining up flying monkeys. And that is to get everybody, that they can on their side, letting you know, it's a message to you that all of these people are siding with this other person against you, or that they just think this person is so incredible. So you better not come out and say anything against this person, or you're just gonna look like the crazy one. You're just gonna look like there's something wrong with you because everybody else thinks they're amazing. Another way of devaluing is broken or empty promises. So they'll tell you that they're gonna do something, they'll tell you they're never gonna do it again, or that they're gonna work on this part of the relationship, and maybe you see them do it for a day or two, or even a week or two, and then it goes back to where it was before. So they're just letting you know in a subtle way that whatever it was that they promised you, they're just not going to do. They don't care enough about you to actually continue to do those things, or to do them at all. And if you've seen any of these behaviors and it's sounding super familiar to you, give me a totally in the comments. Another way of devaluing you is incredulity. Meaning just being incredulous, not believing. Like, oh my God, you actually believe that? Or you actually believe what that person is saying? You're actually going along with that? I can't believe you're doing that. How stupid are you for believing in that? And they may even, have that if you decide that you want to have a certain religion, or maybe you think a certain person is really terrific. They're going to cut that down. And that serves a number of purposes for them when they do that, by the way, because it can mean like, okay, whatever you think is stupid, because obviously you're thinking something is great. But the other part of that is that they can't stand when you think something is so fantastic, because it might compete with them. It might compete for your attention for them. So they definitely are going to have to devalue anything else that might take your attention away from them, whether it's a person, whether it's an activity, or a belief, whatever it is. But if it takes away from your full attention on them and your full adulation on them, then it's something that they're definitely going to devalue. Another way of devaluing is like passive aggression. So how this might look in a divorce setting is that the person might say that they are going to put money in a certain bank account. So, they might say, I'll take care of paying the bills. I told you I would take care of it because you said, please put the money in the bank account. And so they say, we'll take care of it. So, for days go on that you're looking in the bank account, no money, no money, no money. So you go back to the person and you say, hey, you said that you were going to put the money in the bank account. You still haven't done that. I need to pay the bills. And the person comes back to you and they say, no, what I said was I would take care of it. I meant I will pay the bills. So they changed what you, and they knew what you actually believed, but they just wanted to mess with you. So then you say, okay, are you going to pay the bills directly? Yes, I'll take care of it. And then days go by and they haven't actually paid the bills directly either. And then you have to go back to them again. And it's all a way of devaluing you, making you feel less, taking something that's important to you. And anytime they can find an area of vulnerability, they will use that against you. And so, and find a way to devalue that. So anything that you think is important, that's going to get devalued. Anything that you think that is that matters to you, that is going to end up being devalued. And it can even happen in your sex life. And if you haven't checked out my videos, I have a 3-part series on narcissism and sex. You should definitely check that out because it even happens in the bedroom as well. These are just a few of the ways that narcissists devalue you. So it's love bomb, devalue, then discard. And as I said, they kind of all happen at the same time. But in part 3, I'm going to talk much more about the discard phase. So this is part 3 of a 3-part series on the relationship with a narcissist and the phases of a relationship with a narcissist. So the 3 phases of a relationship with a narcissist are the love bombing phase, and you're going to want to go check out that video. And then the devalue phase. Today, we're going to be talking about the discard phase. And the discard phase is where you're kind of ending this relationship with a narcissist. And it could be that you're ending it or they're ending it. So just remember that the 3 phases of a narcissistic relationship don't happen in linear format. And it's not a timeline. It's not like, okay, now we're in the love bomb phase. Oh, done. Now we're in the discard phase. Oop, or now we're in the devalue phase. Oop, done. Now we're in the discard phase. They kind of are all happening at the same time. And you can be, being discarded while you're being devalued, and love bomb while you're being devalued, and on like that. And so it's really important to understand that, yes, they basically happen in linear fashion. You always start with the love bomb. You always end with the discard. But in between there, they're kind of all mixed together, and it's kind of a Venn diagram that overlaps with each other. So they start off with the love bombing, this overwhelming, I'm perfect for you, and whatever they need to do to get you into their layer of control. It's all about control, because narcissists inside have no sense of inner value. They have to derive all of their value from the external. And as I've said in many of my videos, they're like that hollow chocolate Easter bunny. They have no sense of internal value. They have no empathy, no care for other people. They really just have one thing that they want all the time, and that is narcissistic supply. And they need an endless amount of supply. You're basically feeding a beast, feeding a black hole. It never ends, never ends, never ends. And where do they get that supply? They get that supply from the people around them. So they literally are sucking supply from people. And that's why sometimes they're called energy vampires, or sometimes they're called parasites or leeches, because they literally leave their supply source feeling completely drained. They're draining the life out of you. They're like vampires that are sucking blood from you, sucking the life force out of you. And how do they do that? Through this narcissistic supply. They need an endless amount of supply. So the whole reason they love bomb you in the first place, the whole reason you were even targeted in the first place, is for their oxygen source, which is really that supply. So they've love bombed you, they've devalued you, all to get control over you. It's all about getting that control over you. And now you're into the discard phase. And the discard phase can be you deciding you don't want to be with this person anymore, or it may be that they don't want to have a relationship with you anymore. But regardless of how it takes place, it's going to be your fault. And they have to make it look like your fault because they want to look good to the rest of the world. And when you're dealing with a narcissist, the one thing you've got to remember is that you're either for them or you're against them. You're either in their world and providing adulation and supply and value to them, or if you no longer have value to them, then you no longer have value, period. In fact, you become a liability. And so now you're the enemy. You become public enemy number one. And so they're going to go after you with all guns blazing to make sure that the world knows that it was your fault, your problem, you're the one that's bad. And sometimes they can be setting up this discard phase even before the actual end of your relationship. So, it's in the discard phase that you start to see the birth of the smear campaign. So what it might look like is that, they might 3 months or 6 months before a divorce is filed start to slip little things into friends or neighbors like, oh, I'm so worried about her. I'm so worried about him. They're just drinking so much more than they used to. I'm really concerned. And they'll couch it like that so that when the divorce is actually filed or the breakup actually takes place, they can go back and go, well, I told you that this was happening. So it's very, very insidious. It's very toxic and very stealth, very under the radar. They're super good at being master manipulators. So, the smear campaign can start even before you even realize that there's an impending end to the relationship. So what happens at the end of a relationship sometimes is what we call hoovering, which is where they kind of come back and start to love bomb you again. And, it's like during the discard phase, because even if you wanted to the end of the relationship or they did or whatever, they may come back and love bomb you again because they either want to get control back over you just so that they can get the settlement that they want in your case, or maybe they just want to get you away from their lawyer, or or maybe they just really can't stand the fact that you're moving on. Even if they wanted to discard you, maybe they get upset because you're moving on so fast, or that you're with somebody else now already. So then they come running back to try to love bomb you again to get you back under their layer of control. It's very insidious and sick. They've already messed with your brain. So you've already probably got some kind of trauma bonding going on. Meaning what happens is if they love bomb, devalue, love bomb, devalue, love bomb, devalue, love bomb, discard, your brain actually releases dopamine levels that cause you to anticipate that you might get this love bomb. So it's not the actual love bombing, it's the anticipation that you might get it. And so your brain actually becomes addicted to this person. And love bombing and devaluing and discarding is how they cause you to become actually addicted to being with you and wanting to believe everything they say when they give you empty promises that things are going to be different or that they're going to change in some way or whatever it is. So you have to be really, really aware of that and really careful of that. And the only way that you can really protect yourself going forward is to just completely go no contact. And sometimes it's not possible because you have children together or whatever, but if you do have children or maybe the person's a member of your family, then you just have to have the strongest, most steel boundaries that you possibly can so that you can protect yourself from this toxicity. The one thing you need to remember, and it's hard to remember and sometimes very hard to accept, is that this person is not going to change. They cannot be rehabilitated. It's like if a limb was cut off and you can't put a new one on there. I mean, it's not going to grow. I mean, you could get a fake one or whatever, but there's not going to be a new one that grows. And it's just the same thing. They can't grow empathy. They can't grow care. They can fake it. I mean, they certainly know how they're supposed to behave, but it doesn't mean they actually feel it. There's just something broken inside of their brains that doesn't allow them to feel it. So it's better for you if you just understand this in this discard phase and move on. Okay, so they're stuck in your brain. You feel stuck. You feel powerless against them. I know what it's like. I mean, I've seen it. I've seen it time and time again. When I was full on practicing, I did high net worth divorce. That was the only kind of law I actually ever practiced. And I practiced law for more than 20 years. So I've seen it. I've seen it both with men and with women, by the way. So I know a lot of people think it's just women who can't let go. It's not true. I saw men in very, very toxic relationships many, many times who couldn't let go either. Saw men who were being beat up by women who just literally couldn't let go, and all strata, rich, wealthy men who couldn't let go. So, for those of you guys out there who are feeling a lot of maybe shame or guilt or anger, resentment, sadness, you're feeling stuck, you're feeling powerless, you're not alone. It's not just women, although I know there's a lot of you women out there who are feeling that way too. And you're just feeling like, I just don't know how to get out of this. And there's a Kelly Clarkson song out there for those of you who may or may not have heard it. It's called Addicted. And every time I hear that song, I think of this, it's like, it goes something like, it's like you're a drug. It's like a demon I can't face down. It's like I'm stuck. It's like I'm running from you all the time. And I just think of that song sometimes, like, you just feel like you can't let go. And so why is that? So first of all, they start off with this unbelievable love bombing. It's very different than a lot of relationships. I mean, a lot of relationships, you start off, maybe you're just friends and you have a nice relationship and maybe you start dating and maybe it's a nice dinner. It's very different than a narcissistic beginning. They come on very strong, lots and lots of attention, lavish attention, amazing. You're the most incredible human ever. You're the only person in the world, the most beautiful, the most handsome, they sweep you off your feet. It is intoxicating how they come on. It can be like a drug at the beginning. And they make you feel very, very special at the beginning. And so that love bombing is very intoxicating at the beginning. And so it is making you feel really incredible. And all of these hormones in your brain are firing, and the serotonin is being released, and the dopamine is being released, and all of these things are happening. And then the devaluing sets in. And just so you know, when that love bombing is happening, it's happening because they are grooming you. They're grooming you because they want you to be a good source of supply for them. And then that devaluing starts setting in, and it's super confusing because you think, what is going on here? And, there is a study by a psychologist named Robert Sapolsky who talks about how, in monkeys, when they get these rewards, they get rewarded all the time. Nothing happens in their brain. And then when these monkeys get rewarded intermittently, like variably, and they don't know when they're going to get this reward, just the anticipation that they're going to get this reward causes the dopamine levels in their brain to rise to the level of cocaine. And that's what happens, like you think, okay, am I going to get this love bomb again? Am I going to get it? Am I going to get it? And that's what happens with narcissists. You almost become physiologically addicted to them, because then it's back to the love bombing. And it's like after they devalue you and they're super hurtful, then they come back and they start love bombing again to get you off of the fact that they may have ghosted you or devalued you or lied to you or caught them. And, they start the future faking, projection and deflection, and they do all of these things. Just know that the love bombing that they do in the beginning, things that they're saying, the things that they're doing, as hard as it may sound, it doesn't actually have anything to do with you. I know it's pretty harsh to even say, but it's really just them grooming you to be a good source of supply for them because they want you to start to adulate them and become a good source of supply for them. It's really a deposit because they want to start taking withdrawals from that bank account that they're depositing into. And then what happens is a lot of times you've now built your life around this person. And I think of that Stevie Nicks song, Landslide, I'm afraid of changing because I've built my life around you. And that relationship becomes your identity. And sometimes financially you're tied to this person. There's this whole thing with the limbic system, and there's other things going on physiologically that make you think that you can't leave this person, that survival is telling you that if you leave this person that everything will be bad. And there's triggers that cause you to crave them. There's a lot of other things going on. But here's the great thing about the brain. The brain is actually something that can be retrained. There's a lot that we've learned about the brain, and I've had the pleasure of getting to spend some personal time with Jim Quick and some of the other brain experts in the world. And we know a lot more about the neuroplasticity of the brain than we've known for thousands of years. And we've learned more in the last 10 years about the brain than we've known ever. And the brain is actually extremely retrainable. And the brain is actually just a supercomputer that can be retrained. And you can actually retrain your brain to be retaught that you don't need this person. And I've helped thousands of people through my programs and through the things that I teach to get on the other side of these narcissists. And that's why I have like my Narc Slayer Club membership, where I have a support group, and I have Danielle, who's part of my Narc Slayer Club, who has a background in mental health, and through her support groups, we help people get on the other side of these things by retraining the brain. And you can do this. You can retrain your brain. And so I want you to put in the comments right now, I can do this. Because by starting to say things like that, you're actually starting to send a message to your brain that you can do this. So I want you to put that in the comments right now. I can do this, because you can. You're going to start to send a message to your brain that you can. You're telling a different story. And then that's what you're going to do. And that's what you are doing now. And by watching these videos, you're already starting to send a different message to your brain as well. So give yourself a pat on the back for doing that, for just being here, for just starting to recognize what's going on. When the narcissist knows that you will, you're going to have to deal with some stuff first. But then it'll change and you're going to know what to do. All right. So the first thing that the narcissist is going to do is they're going to turn on the charm, because that's what they do. They're going to be like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? And so they're going to go back to the well. They're going to go back to what worked for them at the beginning, which was that love bombing thing. That's what they did at the beginning. So they're going to turn on that charm, and they're going to see if that works, at least initially, because they're going to be panicking a little bit. So they may try to love bomb you, future fake you, try to see if that works. Oh, we can do this, whatever it is. And this is the same thing if it's in a romantic relationship or a business relationship. They do the same thing. I was in a business relationship with a narcissist. It was the same thing. When I started to try to exit out of the business relationship, suddenly the business partner started doing all the things that they were supposed to be doing all the way through the relationship, which was actually to me annoying because it was like they knew what they were supposed to be doing the whole time and didn't do it. So I was like thinking, oh, so you knew what you were supposed to be doing. So to me, that didn't work. So what happens is they realize, oh, this isn't working, because when you're done, right? So this is, the narcissist knows you're on to them. So now they're starting to feel threatened by your knowledge. They're threatened. And so with the narcissist, it's all black and white, black and white. You're either for them or against them. There's no gray area. And remember, they're very easily slighted, very easily slighted. So once they realize that you're on to them, you become public enemy number one. Now they're going to try to silence you. Now you are going to be the enemy. They're going to try to gaslight you to try to say, hey, whatever it is that you think you don't know. So they're going to try to make you believe that whatever it is, that information that you might have, you don't have, or it's wrong, or that you're crazy, you're delusional, that sort of thing. So they may even try to discredit you, try to attack you. They'll go to others, try to get them to be on their side. Now, this may have been going on for a while, by the way, especially if it's covert narcissist, because, they instinctively know that it may not work out at some point. So even long before the discard phase actually happens, if they think that it's going to be happening at some point, they will start that planting of seeds with third parties, because they don't want you to feel aligned with anyone else in their world. They want you to be sort of isolated. They want to be the ones aligned with other people. They don't want you to be the ones aligned with other people. So they make sure that you feel isolated. They make sure that they're the ones that have the people aligned with them, and you feel like you don't have. So they'll make sure they know that they spoke to this person and you didn't, or they have the closer relationship and you don't, and that they talk to them more, or that they got the better information from that person. And everything's sort of a competition even before you actually have the breakup with this person, because it's got to be a competition with them, and even if you're not that way, and you're all over there going, that's great that you spoke to that person, or that's lovely that you had that conversation, or I'm so glad you had lunch with that person. They don't see it that way. They still want you to feel like you're isolated, or they have this better thing going on. And so it's very difficult to have a normal relationship with a person when they're not having a normal relationship with you. What's happening though is they're planting seeds against you with these third parties, whether it's dropping little things about you. Well, they're not really working all that hard, or they don't really like you, or they drink too much. Whatever it is that they're saying about you, she does this thing, or she doesn't really take care of the kids, or she's not great with numbers. They just drop these little things that aren't great. And so when it comes time to actually have the breakup, they've already discredited you in such a way that it actually seems plausible to do the full on attack, because they've sprinkled in these little things about you all along. So they constantly are discrediting, 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 and planting seeds, planting enough doubt, planting enough doubt, planting enough doubt. And that way, this other person's sort of looking for something about you. And if there's just a hint of something, there's that confirmation bias going on. Oh, yeah, I see it. Yeah. And so there's that manipulation going on of people around you. It's just, it could be sort of subliminal. That's what's happening of the people around you. And you may not even realize that it's going on. So that's what happens when the narcissist knows that you know. Another thing that happens when the narcissist knows that you know is they will start filing false pleadings against you in court. They might start doing that, depending on how malignant they are. They might even file things against you that are completely false, say things that are, completely will ruin your life. I've seen that before. One of the things that you need to do early on is make sure you go on the offensive. Make sure that you keep track of everything. Document, document, document. And one of the things that I tell people constantly is don't fall for, oh, we don't need lawyers, or we can just settle this ourselves, that sort of thing. You get lulled into believing that they want to do this amicably or that something like that. Let me tell you, if they were liars the whole entire time that you were in a relationship with them, whether it's a business relationship or a personal relationship, they're most certainly not going to start telling you the truth when you're on opposite sides. It doesn't make any sense. They will definitely be lying to you now. They are out for themselves. And you are public enemy number one. Don't fall for it. You need to take care of yourself. I know that this is what happens when the narcissist knows that you know. If you understand what I'm saying, give me an amen in the comments right now. Just write amen in the comments, because you know that I know what I'm talking about over here, right? It's all black and white with them. They're in it for themselves. And what happens is if you fall for it, then you end up so far behind in the negotiations or so far behind in the communications. And by the time you figure out what's going on, they've gotten away with so much. And you feel like things are so unfair. But part of it is because you started off at the beginning with thinking that everything was going to be good or everything was going to be nice, or you just wanted what's fair and you just wanted what was good. And, you came at it with such good intentions, but they didn't. They didn't, even though that may have been what came out of their mouth. That's not what they felt. So keep track of everything. Document everything. Stay on the offensive. Stay on the offensive. If you're an empath, which more than likely you probably are, it probably goes against your grain to do that. You probably feel like, oh, I don't want to fight. But let me just tell you, if you don't want to fight and you're dealing with a narcissist, then that's what you have to do. That's what you have to do. It's counterintuitive, but that is what you end up having to do. So let's unravel the mystery of the narcissist fake discard. This is a cunning tactic, and it's so cruel. This is one of the most vicious, kind of really cruel things that they'll do, is they love to play with your emotions. And, they always do this sort of push-pull thing, push-pull, push-pull, push-pull. But this is really one of the worst ones, because you really think, okay, this is it. I definitely am ready. I'm done. It's over. But it's designed to keep you ensnared in their web of manipulation, of course. It's part of that whole supply source thing, right? So knowledge is power, though, right? So we're here to equip you with the tools that you need to break free. What is a fake discard? It's this theatrical performance, is really what it is. And it's designed to evoke major emotions in you. So it's to evoke pity, it's to evoke sympathy or evoke anger or to get you to be upset, drama, chaos, and ultimately control. It's ultimately a way for you to go crawling back and demonstrate how much you need them, how much you want them, how much your loyalties lie there, whether it's a professional relationship or a personal relationship. How do you distinguish between the real discard and the fake discard? Well, in a real discard, you're not going to hear from them again, at least not anytime soon, not until their new source of supply is really discarding them. So, in a real discard, let's say, for example, I had situations before in a divorce practice where, let's say, a guy meets up with his old flame on Facebook. He says, honey, this has been great, but I know, you stood by me for the last 30 years or whatever it is, but I met up with my old flame from high school on Facebook, and I know you might have breast cancer or whatever it is, but I'm out of here. That's a real story. So I am now moving in with my old flame, and you can move in with your mother and see ya. That's, probably a real discard right there because, they've got a new source of supply. They, have something else to move on to, and they're probably not looking back until then new source of supply ditches them. They have no more supply going on over there, and they don't have any money, or no one else is giving them sex or whatever it is. Then they come crawling back to you. That is how that usually goes. And all of that is a real story, by the way. So disgusting, so bad. You can put it in the comments, so bad. But that would be a real discard. A fake discard is more about manipulating emotions. It's much more about how can we use this as a tactic to manipulate, to be the master puppeteer, to cause turmoil, to cause confusion, to cause drama. It's usually a temporary thing. So normally within a week or two that you'll hear from this person, and the entire time that you haven't heard from them, they're watching you, they're checking up on you. Yeah, they're not responding to texts or whatever, but the whole time they are looking to see what you're up to or whatever. And even if it's in a workplace situation, they're still kind of checking on you to see what you're up to or what you're doing. And then eventually, of course, they'll give in. Okay, well, I'll talk to you now, only if you do this, this, and this, and blah, blah, blah. Right. And they have like their list of conditions or ways that they will talk to you again, and then it starts to de-ice at some point or thaw out. That's how that will usually go, and then that's how that that's been a fake discard, because it doesn't usually last that long, and then you end up starting to talk to each other again. The real discard will usually last a lot longer. The devastating impact on your emotions, because that this person is literally causing you so much strife and so much heartache and so much pain. It's just not okay what they're doing. It's not okay. And so you really have to start to think about, how can you create emotional autonomy? How can you start to build some kind of boundary around this and understand, I'm not somebody that you can play this game with. You have to start to go, I understand that you're testing me. This is not a game that I'm willing to play with you anymore. I want to move on with my life. So you start to think about, how can I exit this relationship, whether it's a workplace situation or a home situation, or if it's a family situation. You have to start to think about, how can I have some boundaries here that are going to work for me. But if it's a home situation, you've got to start to think about, how can I set some boundaries effectively so that when this person comes along and starts inevitably testing them again, I can be in a place of power. I can reclaim my sense of power. You can't live in this constant state of flux where now it's over. No, it's not. I'm going to be moving out. No, I'm not. You can't live your life like that. No matter how resilient you are, no matter how strong you are, no matter how tough you are, that's not a way of life. So it's time to shed the shackles of manipulation and embrace your inherent strength. You're worthy of something so much more than that. You're worthy of something so much more respectful than that. I want you to, right now, think about what it is that you really want for yourself and your life. It's not something where you're just optional all the time, where you're just, you know what? Yeah, now I want you. Nah, no, I don't. Like, you're just food that, you're just being served in the restaurant, and you know what? I'm just gonna send it back. You're not that. You're not the optional thing at the restaurant. Phrases, warning phrases that are a sign the narcissist is about to discard you. And by the way, if you want some good phrases to disarm the narc yourself, go to disarmthenarc.com and grab my free phrases for disarming narcissists as a gift to you. Just disarmthenarc.com. Just for a couple seconds about the different phases of a narcissistic relationship, just in case you're new to this whole thing. So they start off with love bombing, which is that whole, oh my God, you're my soulmate. I can't believe I've never met anybody like you before. You are the only one for me. That whole thing, which has really nothing to do with love. It's all about manipulation, but that's the beginning of the whole thing. Love bombing, then you go into devaluing, then you go into discard. Devaluing is pretty quickly right after the love bomb phase, and then into the discard, which is what we're going to be talking about now. And then sometimes you see something what they call hoovering, which is when they're trying to suck you back in, sort of like hoovering the vacuum, where they try to come back after the discard. And sometimes it's even months, years down the road, where you just get that ping in your direct message in your Instagram or your Facebook messaging or your text messaging or whatever. Oh, hey, how you doing? They just checking you out just to see if there's anything there, any potential possibility of coming back into your life. You thought you were done with them. That's the Hoover. Okay. Or maybe it's during the discard phase. Sometimes I've seen that too. But nonetheless, the Hoover is, after the discard. They try to worm their way back into your life. So that's kind of the different phases of a narcissistic relationship in a very quick nutshell. Then here we are. Here we are. We're in the discard phase. That's what we're going to be talking about now. And I'm going to give you 5 warning phrases that this is afoot. This is happening. What's happening is, they're starting to become more and more mean. They're around less and less. You're starting to see different changes in their personality as well. You're starting to see changes in their appearance sometimes too, by the way. Sometimes they are starting to look better. You're starting to see them going to the gym. They're working out more, losing weight. They're dressing differently. You're starting to see maybe changes in their schedules. Maybe they're becoming more and more secretive. So these kinds of things start happening at the same time that they're going to start saying these things. So I think it's important that I kind of set the stage of what's going on as you're starting to hear these sorts of things coming out of their mouth as well. And, I can tell you that I did practice high net worth divorce law for a very long time. And so I definitely saw these things. They start planting seeds, they start leaving clues. The clues are around. I saw it a lot. So, it shouldn't be a super shock a lot of the time. Sometimes it can be. Many times it's really not as much of a shock as you might think. When you start to see these things, it's definitely time to move on. And if you agree with me, put agree in the comments right now. Just put agree because I know that you agree with me. You can definitely do better. And by the way, that is number one. Number one is they say to you, I can do better. I can do better. So that's one of the warning phrases that you'll see from that narcissist. They'll start to say things like, I can do better than you. During the devalue phase, they will start to say things that aren't nice. If they're starting to say things like, I can do better than you, that's when you're starting to see this, because during the devalue phase, they don't necessarily want you to go anywhere. They're jealous, they want control over you. If during the discard phase, they're starting to push you away, you're starting to see less and less jealousy, you're starting to see less and less of that kind of grip. Now it's starting to be more like, I can do better than you, that sort of thing. And that leads me to number two. Now, in number two, you'll hear something like, we're just so different. We are growing apart. That's a very distinct difference than the kinds of things that you'll hear during the devalue phase. During the devalue phase, they may say things like, nobody likes you, family doesn't even like you, I'm the only one who can stand you, things like that, which are also horrible things to say. But those kinds of devaluing things are also meant to manipulate you and control you into, I need to have dominion over you. This is, I'm going to be pushing you away. There's kind of a distinct difference there. So we're growing apart. And then number three is, you add nothing to my life. You add nothing to my life. Now, you will hear something like that sometimes during the devalue phase, the devalue phase too. But this is, something you definitely will hear during the discard phase also. You add nothing to my life. And then number four, again, when you start hearing these things taken together a lot, I can do better than you, we're just so different, we're growing apart, you add nothing to my life. And then you start seeing changes in their appearance. They're more and more secretive, and they're starting to accuse you of cheating. They're starting to accuse you of not being trustworthy. They're starting to accuse you of things like that. That's when you start to see things, right? So the next one is number four. I could be totally happy on my own. You start to see this wandering eye going on with them. You start to see where, that would be a great place to live if somebody were single. I mean, I remember actually somebody saying that to me when they were still married to somebody. This woman said that to me. Oh, that would be a great place to live if somebody were single. And then like 6 months later, she and her husband were separating. Like I knew at that point that she must be looking, because she said something like that. Okay. I could be totally happy on my own. And number five is, again, something that people might hear if they're in the devalue phase as well. But again, taken together with everything else that I've been talking about here, it's definitely something that you hear during the discard phase as well, which is, everyone knows that you have problems. Everyone knows that you have problems. And again, these are also the types of things that they might be starting to say to other people as well. Because, especially covert narcissists, during the discard phase, they're going to start to line up flying monkeys. Because during the discard phase, that's when you're going to start to see the birth of the smear campaign. Whether or not you know if the discard phase is happening, they know that they're starting to discard. They're going to start to want to have their army of people ready to go. They're going to want to make you feel like you have this army of people ganging up on you. Everyone else is going to believe them. No one is going to believe you. So you better not try anything funky because everyone's going to, be on their side. So you better go along with what they want. It's kind of like this warning sign that no one's going to believe you. Everyone's going to believe their lies. Everyone knows you've got the problems. They speak in these absolutes. Everyone, no one. They want to believe you think that you're crazy. And so you've got this sick feeling inside, this horrible feeling inside, like, oh, this is not going to go my way. That's the last one. And I just want you to know it's not true. Most of the time, they puff these things up. They say these things. They're not true. They also say all kinds of things like, you're going to go down and you're never going to see your kids and I'm going to take everything. All that stuff is not true. I mean, most of the stuff that comes out of their mouth is lies. And you know that that's true. That's the only part that's true, is that everything they say is a lie. So just remember that. Remember what the facts are. Remember what evidence you have in reality about things and stick to that. Don't let your imagination go off into the wild, okay? Watch videos like this so that you can keep your sanity in check and make sure that you get the help and support that you need so that you don't isolate yourself. That is so, so important. Shopify helps millions sell billions around the world through their digital courses, through their digital products at the touch of a button on their smartphones, on social media, however they want, including me. At shop.rebeccazung.com, you can access your store from all over the world, just the touch of a button from your smartphones. Start accepting payments. Everything you need to sell online, manage orders, and develop relationships in one place and look fabulous doing it. Shopify is the commerce platform that is revolutionizing millions of businesses worldwide, including my own, at shop.rebeccazung.com. So right now, what you need to do is sign up for a $1 a month trial period at shopify.com/bestlife. All lowercase. Go to shopify.com/bestlife to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/bestlife.